Thank you all for joining us this morning, and we had a wonderful opportunity last night to play a concert here on this, I think, relatively newly refurbished piano. It's just great to have a real acoustic grand piano here in a church. A lot of churches are getting digital ones, which are still good, but I always like the good old-fashioned acoustic. So it's great to be able, I think, to come together like this and talk a little bit about what is essential in our life, what's most important. And I think that in our society we neglect, and I would say we probably do more than neglect, we probably in many ways actively stomp on what is most important and most essential in our lives. The sensitivity that we have to the spiritual dimension of life, to that which cannot be measured or known by the five senses. We live in a society that in many ways is materialistic in the sense that we think that if you can't scientifically document it, then it doesn't exist somehow. And I think this is a mentality that's injected into all of us in a certain way. But it's wonderful, I think, to come together in a tradition like the Centers for Spiritual Living, the New Thought movement, that is really founded upon honoring the wisdom traditions of the world, not only honoring them by reading them and studying them, but by honoring them by quieting our own busy minds and connecting with what is beyond the conditioning of our culture. So I know that if you somehow found your way through the door here, you're people who are already on the path of questioning the official stories of the society that we've been born into. And I think there's no greater gift we can give to our world and to ourselves, to our loved ones, than to do that. Because a lot of the official stories of our society really are harmful. And the official stories, not only about food, the protein story and the calcium story and some of those, but also the stories about work and relationships and competition and getting enough and getting ahead and being successful and all these kinds of things. In many ways, we get distracted. And so I think it's very helpful to look deeply into what our intuition is. This afternoon, Madeline and I will be putting on a workshop here going into this a little more deeply. But the basic idea, I think, is well, when I was at Berkeley getting my PhD in educating intuition, I studied this quite a bit and found that basically every society recognizes that we human beings have these two complementary modes of knowing. One, we use words like logic, analysis, rationality, intellect, so forth. The other, we use words like intuition, inspiration, spiritual knowing. And so, as I was saying, I think we are raised in a society where we've been forced by virtually all of the institutions in our society, our education, religion, government, corporations, media in general, to disconnect from the sacred feminine dimension of life, which is really our intuition. The sacred feminine, I refer to that in the World Peace Diet, the book I wrote, as Sophia. Sophia was the ancient Greek goddess of wisdom. And this goddess of wisdom is not some outside goddess. This is our own inner goddess. Whether we're men or women, we have this capacity to be receptive and to open to a higher level of knowing. And the great gift, I think, that intuition gives us is the gift of living our own life authentically. Because as soon as we're born, we're under a barrage of pressure and indoctrination not to do that, to live some other life, to live the life that we're supposed to live by our parents and teachers and ministers. I know, not Bonnie, but other ministers. The ministers that in many ways come through our society and in very both subtle and direct ways give us the image that we're supposed to fulfill. We try to fulfill this image of being the successful, happy person, whatever that is, as an American in this society. And so what intuition does really is it's our own internal guidance system that will allow us to reconnect with the spiritual dimension, the eternal dimension of what we truly are. And the fundamental idea, I think, underlying all of this is that what we are essentially is not something that was born and will die. That what we are essentially is life itself. And we are all programmed from the time we're born, though, to contract around this idea that what I am is this name and form. Sanskrit, that is nama rupa. Nama rupa is name and form, that me, I'm Will Tuttle, say, and I have this body and this is me. And that was born and will die. And so as we contract around that idea, we tend essentially to, and this is essentially from the Buddhist point of view, the fundamental ignorance, that once you identify with this little speck, then you have to try to get what you want and keep away what you don't want. And so then I find myself in this constant struggle. So the whole idea is that through spiritual practice, through connecting with our intuition, we can relax that contraction. We can realize directly that what I am is an expression of an infinite life and that we are all expressions of that same life. That we're not fundamentally at odds with each other to get enough, because that's what we're taught by our society, essentially. I used to teach college. I mean, I know exactly. You can't give everybody an A, or they'll say, well, what the heck are you doing? You know, you gotta have them compete with each other, you know. So that's why I get out of that. I like this better. But the basic idea is, you know, that we are essentially manifestations of eternal life. There's this old Buddhist story. It's kind of I guess, more of a metaphor. But you know, the idea is if you're walking on the beach and you see a footprint on the beach, it would be kind of silly to say to the footprint, "Well, how are you doing today? You know, you're looking a little shallow today. I'm going to make you a little deeper there." You know, we know that that's just a footprint, right? That's not the being who made the footprint. So you're looking right now, this is a footprint waving his hand. Right? You cannot see me. You can see this footprint. It's not who I am at all. When we are so deluded that we look at outer forms and we think we're seeing a being. So what healing is, essentially, is looking beyond the outer form to see the truth, to see the light, to see the consciousness, to see the love, the essence of being that is manifesting perhaps somehow through this outer form, and to address that. When we address that in ourselves, when we look in the mirror or in meditation and see the eternal life that we truly are and recognize that and understand that that is who we are, that is healing at a very deep level. When we do the same thing as we look at others, it's exactly the same idea. And when we do that in situations, we can begin to connect with the truth that we are and begin to bring this into the world. And I think this essentially is boiled down in some way to the ancient teaching in the Bible. For example, Jesus said that all the teaching basically is, you can distill it into two essential teachings: to love God and love your neighbor. And again, this is essentially the same thing. Loving God means connecting authentically with the transpersonal dimension beyond our name and form, this identification with being a fundamentally separate self, and connect authentically with the essence, the truth that we are, and begin to, and then loving our neighbors, then to not just see it in ourselves, but to see it in all living beings, human beings, animals, ecosystems, this beautiful earth, creation. This is all sacred. Everything is sacred. We're taught in our society that everything has a price. You can commodify anything. We buy and sell cows and pigs and chickens like they're sacks of cement. You know, we treat each other the same way. We have to learn, we have to awaken to the truth of the sacredness of life by awakening to it within our own hearts. And that's why I think the spiritual teachings are so important, because they are a guidance system out of the maze of our cultural programming, which really is important. So, and that's why community is so important, because when we come together in a community like this, we are actively turning in the direction of the light of truth and honoring that light and encouraging that and demonstrating that ourselves. But the foundation of all of it is intuition. Because logically we can talk forever, but unless we understand this directly through meditation, through quieting our mind, through prayer, through inspiration, and really see it, understand it, and feel it, then it's outer words. And so that's why I think we all know in our bones that there's no greater gift, there's no greater, in a sense, no greater ally than being able to connect with an inner knowing and rely upon that to guide us through our life. Our life passes by very quickly. I've realized this now, actually. It was funny because not too long ago I was in China. Madeline and I went to China and Australia and New Zealand, and I had studied Chinese many years ago when I lived in Oakland, and the teacher was great. She was this Chinese woman, and I remember she was very animated. She would get up there and say, you know, if you ever go to China, you have to realize that they will not even listen to you. They will have no respect for you unless you're at least 60 years old. If you're not 60, you don't know anything. You're too young. How can you know anything? So it was really great for me to stand up in front of these people and say, now you have to listen to me. I'm 60 years old now. And they go, you don't look like you're 60. I said, well, you know, I have a good diet. But anyway. But the point is, God, I'm already 60 years old. The point is that life passes by very quickly. And it's very easy to get distracted. And we don't not want to be at the moment of passing on and think, gosh, I wish I had done something else with my life. You know, we have the time now, and the greatest thing we can do is to cultivate our intuition, to open to the spiritual dimension of consciousness. And I think as we do that, the greatest thing that we do then is we live our life. And when someone lives their life, then they encourage other people to live their life. And that creates the foundation for real freedom and wisdom in our society. And I'll just close, you know, the way this kind of manifested in my life specifically, I was born and raised in Concord, Massachusetts back in the 1950s. And I remember it was kind of a neat place because there was two revolutions there. The April 19th, 1775, remember that? Hardly a man is now alive that remembers the famous day and year of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Anyway, my father every April 19th would get dressed up in his Minuteman outfit and get the gun off the wall, and we'd go down to the Old North Bridge and we'd shoot at the redcoats and we'd send them back to Boston and we'd celebrate revolution. The idea is if you have a situation that's, you know, ridiculous, it's intolerable, it's unjust, you should change it. So that, I think, is a healthy attitude. But the other idea, but I don't think we need a violent, I think we need a basically nonviolent revolution today. But the other idea that was very big in Concord about 100 years later was what's referred to as the Transcendentalist Revolution. So I was born in Emerson Hospital and went to Thoreau School and Alcott School and learned to swim in Walden Pond, and there was this whole Transcendentalist thing. And the Transcendentalists were very interesting. I didn't find out till many years later when I was in college, but they were really the ones to bring the teachings of Asia to North America. Thoreau had the largest library of books on Eastern religion, for example, on the Bhagavad Gita and the Taoist and Vedanta and so forth. These teachings. And these teachings were very instrumental in the whole New Thought movement. We have Emerson and Thoreau and Alcott and these people talking about mind as divine. You know, the deity is mind, or the deity is principle from the Taoist tradition, a mind idea from the Buddhist tradition, or the deity is equally male as female. What a radical idea. You know, or equally female as male, even more radical. So the idea is that that from the Asian traditions, we had this enrichment coming in. And I think for me, when I went away to college, I started to study these things and get really excited about it. It was during the Vietnam War era. People were questioning everything anyway. And I remember I read a book that kind of brought it all together. Have any of you ever heard of this book? It was written back in the 1890s by a guy named Richard Buck. It's called Cosmic Consciousness. Anyway, he said that basically most people are at the level of he referred to as self-consciousness. That's kind of where we're at. We're in self-consciousness. We care about ourself and we live our lives that way. But he said certain people had attained what he referred to as cosmic consciousness, and these are the people that we kind of revere in many cases, the people that founded religions, great sages and saints and poets and mystics and artists, both men and women. And he said that these people had attained what he called a qualitative leap beyond self-consciousness, and they didn't just live their lives only caring about themselves. They actually had the sense of caring for everyone. And they had lost the fear of death, and they had this intellectual illumination and a moral elevation that allowed them to live their life at a much higher level in terms of joy, healing, awareness, teaching, and making a positive difference in the world, essentially. So I remember reading that, and what he said was very interesting. He said, this is not a fluke. It's happening more and more with more and more rapidity, and it's the destiny of humanity that everyone will attain cosmic consciousness. That's the point we're here. That's the reason we're here, is to attain this higher consciousness. That's where our evolution path is leading. I remember going back home and, on a break and telling my father, Dad, have you heard about cosmic consciousness? That's why we're here. And isn't that exciting? And he was like, I'm spending a lot of money on this education for you, and I want you to be able to, I was going to take over my father's chain of newspapers that he owned. Anyway, my brother, though, my younger brother was like, it was great. He was very interested. He said, yeah, let's attain cosmic consciousness. That's what we should do. So as soon as I had graduated, we had this kind of big discussion about it, and we thought about, what do we do to attain cosmic consciousness? We had decided we were going to do it, but the question is, well, what do we do now? So we thought about it for quite a while, and then we realized we knew the answer. The answer is, if you want to attain cosmic consciousness, you go to California. So we told our parents, we're heading off to California, and so my mother baked some fresh-baked cookies, and we headed down our path, with our backpacks on and our fresh-baked cookies, and we headed to California. And we got as far as Buffalo after about a month, and being on the road while walking. And when we got to Buffalo, it was October, and it was really freezing already. And so I thought, well, I have a bachelor's degree from a very good school. I think I can figure it out. We're in Buffalo. Okay, we better head south. So we headed south, and we walked about 20 miles a day. We didn't have any money. We had nothing. We had a little bit, and we gave it away. So because we just wanted to walk in faith. And so we walked about, like I say, 15 or 20 miles a day, and we walked down through upstate New York and Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and down into Kentucky, into Tennessee. And after a few months, we'd reached Tennessee. And it was an amazing experience, really. I can't sum it up, but a lot of miracles happened on the way. And I remember sometimes we would stop. We didn't have anything. We had nothing, so we had nothing to lose in a way. And but we were always provided for somehow. We were just focusing on Ramana Maharshi. We found this book, and he recommended just do this practice of ask yourself more and more deeply, who am I? Who am I? Go deeper and deeper with that question till you get beyond the concepts. Find out who you are. And so I was doing that thousands of times a day, just asking that question. I remember we would stay. It was interesting because once we got into West Virginia and Kentucky, they said, now, boys, you're in the Bible Belt. And I didn't know what that meant, but I found out. That meant they tried to save you every night. And we would just come into the town. We'd spend the night on the floor of the church usually, and then we would talk to the people, and they would have us speak to their Sunday school. I remember sometimes they'd give us a little money, and we told the people in the Sunday school, the kids, we'd say, listen, this is what Jesus said is true. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else should be added unto you. That's the most important thing. The spiritual dimension of life is the most important thing. Focus on that, and everything else will be taken care of. And they would give us a little money, and we'd go on, and we'd have lunch. And back then, lunch for two people cost maybe $8. And so they gave us, I remember one time they gave us $30, and we gave the waitress a $22 tip. We said, thank you, and we went on. And because we knew we shouldn't hang on for the next day. Just each day is sufficient thereof. So we just let it go, and every day we were taken care of. And finally, anyway, we ended up at the farm in Tennessee, and that was, at that point, the largest hippie commune in the world, and they were all from California. It was about 1,000 people. And so we thought, that's good. We kind of met you guys in the middle. But the whole, the way it went from there, you probably won't believe it, but we ended up eventually walking down to Alabama, and there was a Zen center there in Alabama that we ended up living in. And eventually I did get to San Francisco, and I did eventually shave my head, become a Zen monk, and went to Korea, and eventually got my PhD at Berkeley and taught college, and then decided, the best thing to do is just to travel around to progressive churches, and because this is where the teaching is really happening, I think. The universal teachings. And so Madeline and I have now, I met Madeline in Switzerland when I was over there in the Ukraine playing the piano. And we've been basically traveling now for 25 years. It's amazing how the time flies when you're having a great time. But the basic message, I guess, really in all of this for me is that underlying everything, at the core, I think each one of us, if we just dig down deeply into our own consciousness to the very core of our being, what we will find right down there, very deep, is a bubbling spring of enormous joy. That is our true nature. We do not need any reason in the outer world to be happy. Just being is happiness. Being is joy. Just to be alive, just to be able to open our eyes, or even if you don't open your eyes, just to be able to experience life essentially is the core being is joy, and we're here to celebrate our lives. We're here to awaken from whatever delusions we have and to celebrate our lives. And so I remember as I was walking on that walk with my brother, and we didn't have any reason to be happy in the outer world, right? We didn't have any money, we didn't have any security. I was not doing what I was supposed to do. I was going against my wishes of my parents, and I'm sure my teachers would have been horrified at college. What's he doing? He's wasting his life, But it was, for me, it was just the right thing to do. And so I would feel for the first time, I think since I was maybe 1 or 2 years old, I think I maybe felt it back then, these waves of joy, just this happiness, because I had no reason, but I was just happy because I was living my life. And I think all of us, it doesn't mean that life will be easy, but it does mean that we're living our life. And living our life authentically is a fundamental source of joy. And I think that each one of us, as we do that, we give permission to other people to do the same thing. And when we come together as a community like this, then we're even we're multiplying that even much greater. So I want to, again, just close by thanking all of you for questioning the official stories of our society that really, in many ways, close us down, keep us stressed out, keep us competing with each other, keep us dominating, exploiting this beautiful planet and harming animals, and to question all of it, question everything. That would be my main message. Just question everything. Everything. Everything, everything, everything. And I mean everything. Everything. Just question your own mind. Everything you tell yourself, question that the most. You really don't trust. At a deep level, connect with intuition and let that be the guide. Because we have to radically transform our society. And it's through love, totally. It's time. I think it's obvious. And to see that everything is interconnected. And we can do it. It's just a matter of connecting with our intuition and being loving to ourselves and loving to each other and loving to all expressions of life, to future generations, to hungry people, to everyone. And we only have a short time on this planet, so let's not waste it. Let's use it for the best of, not only for ourselves, but for everyone. Much love to you all, and thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you.